The arrival. The storm had ended only an hour ago, but the ground still shivered with leftover thunder. The sky of the strange planet was colored like rust, a red haze hanging low over broken towers and silent streets. No birds sang, no wind moved. Only the crunch of boots on the cracked stone floor echoed through the ruins. Elias Drake, a human explorer, tightened the straps of his helmet. His ship had crashed 2 days ago, far from the colonies. No signals, no rescue. The only thing waiting, here were shadows and ruins that looked far too old to belong to any living race. He walked carefully, his hand close to the pulse rifle on his hip. Every sense alive. Something was here with him. He had felt it since last night. Eyes in the dark, following him, but never striking. He had seen a shape once, at the corner of a fallen building. It moved like a person but carried a glow, soft and pale, like moonlight trapped in armor. Elias tried to tell himself it was only his mind playing tricks. But explorers trusted their instincts, and his instincts were screaming that he was not alone. He turned a corner into what looked like a wide courtyard. Broken statues stood in pieces, their faces carved with pride but shattered by time. In the middle of the courtyard, between the dust and stone, stood a figure. It was tall, covered from head to toe in armor unlike anything Elias had seen. Black metal but alive with lines of white light that pulsed like veins. The armor seemed too perfect, too smooth, too beautiful, as if carved not by hands but by something greater. The figure did not move. It only watched him. Elias froze. His rifle stayed lowered, but his body was tense, ready. Then the figure spoke. The voice was deep, calm, and carried no echo, as if it slipped straight into Elias's mind instead of the air around them. "You should not be here, human." Elias swallowed. His throat felt dry inside the helmet. "I didn't mean to come. My ship went down. I just need help." The figure tilted its head. Light moved across its chest, faint patterns shifting like constellations. Then it stepped forward, slow, controlled. Elias raised his rifle a little, but he didn't fire. Something about the way the figure moved. It wasn't hostile. At least not yet. The armored being stopped a few steps away, close enough that Elias could see faint details. The armor wasn't smooth after all. It was scarred, burn marks, deep scratches, the kind only battles could leave behind. But despite the scars, the light within it still made the being appear almost beautiful. "You call me beautiful, human," the voice said, softer now, almost thoughtful. "But you have not seen what I am beneath the armor." The words crawled into Elias's chest. Something about them felt like both a warning and a confession. He wanted to ask what it meant, but his tongue was heavy. Instead, he managed a weak laugh. "Well, I've seen worse faces back on Earth." The figure did not laugh. Its glowing eyes stayed fixed on him. And then Elias realized something strange. There was no sound of breathing, no rise and fall of a chest. The figure was not alive in any way he understood. Before Elias could speak again, the ground shook. A low rumble rolled through the ruins and one of the broken statues collapsed with a crash. Dust filled the air. Elias spun around, rifle ready. From the shadows of the ruins, machines stirred. They looked like insects, metal bodies with six, sharp legs and single red eyes that glowed like fire. Defense drones, long forgotten but still alive. They crawled over the broken walls, their metal claws scratching. Elias cursed under his breath, aiming at the nearest one. He fired. The blue blast from his rifle burning through a machine's head. It screeched and fell, legs twitching. But more were coming. Too many. The armored figure did not move to fight. It only stood there, watching. Elias shouted, "Are you just going to stand there?" The voice came again, calm even as the machines closed in. "This is your test." "What test? I didn't sign up for this." Elias blasted another drone, but two more jumped from the wall. One slammed against his arm, knocking the rifle away. Elias grunted, pulling his combat knife from his boot. The machine lunged. He shoved the knife into its glowing eye. Sparks. exploding. Breathing hard, Elias turned. 3 more surrounded him now, their claws scraping the stone. He backed up until his shoulder touched the armored figure's chest. Cold, hard, silent. "Help me!" Elias shouted. For the first time, the figure raised a hand. White light flared from its palm and the nearest machines froze mid-lunge, their bodies twisting as if crushed by invisible weight. With a soft hum, they fell to the ground lifeless. The courtyard was silent again. Dust floated in the air. Elias bent down, picking up his rifle with shaking hands. He turned to face the figure, anger and fear mixing in his voice. "What the hell are you? You let me fight them alone. You could have ended it in seconds." The figure lowered its hand. "I needed to see, to know if you would stand or fall." Elias stared. "And what did you see?" The figure leaned closer, its glowing eyes locking with his. "I saw a human who does not yet understand what kind of world he has walked into." Elias wanted to argue, but the words died in his throat. He realized something then. He wasn't just lost on a broken planet. He was standing in the ruins of something far greater, something older than his entire species. And the armored being before him was not just a survivor, it was a secret waiting to be revealed, and it had chosen him. The first test, Elias had always thought of himself as brave. He had crossed empty space in a small ship, landed on strange moons, walked alone into caves where no human had walked before. But standing in that ruined courtyard, under the glowing eyes of the armored being, he realized bravery was a weak word. This was not bravery. This was survival. And survival here meant obeying rules he didn't yet understand. The being turned away from him without another word and began to walk. The light in its armor pulsed slowly, guiding a path through the red haze. It did not ask Elias to follow. It didn't have to. Something in Elias's chest told him that if he stayed behind, he would not live long. So he followed, his rifle tight in his grip, his eyes on the shifting shadows. They walked through long streets where statues leaned like broken giants, their arms reaching for skies that had already forgotten them. The air smelled faintly metallic, sharp, almost like blood. Every few minutes, Elias caught glimpses of movement in the corner of his eyes, machines crawling back into the dark, as if they were afraid of the armored figure but hungry for him. Finally, they reached a gate. A massive arch of stone and steel, half-collapsed, carved with symbols Elias didn't recognize. The being stopped in front of it. "This is where your path begins," Elias frowned, looking at the dark opening beneath the gate. "What's in there?" "Truth," the figure said. "Or death." "Sometimes both." Elias let out a dry laugh. "Comforting." The being turned its head toward him. "You survived the drones. That was instinct. But instinct is not enough. You must be tested in will." Elias felt a chill crawl down his back. He had survived because of training, because of years carrying a rifle through colonies that didn't want him there. But something told him this test would be different. He looked into the blackness of the gate. The air inside was colder, as if the shadows breathed. "Go," the figure said. "The test is for you alone." Elias hesitated. "And what about you?" The figure's glowing eyes narrowed. "If I enter, there will be no test, only silence. The choice is yours, human. Enter or stay in the dust until this world eats you." Elias cursed under his breath, adjusted his helmet, and stepped inside. The moment he crossed the threshold, the world shifted. The ruins outside disappeared, swallowed by darkness. The air was thick, heavy, pressing down on him. He heard whispers, faint and endless, like voices carried through water. His rifle's scope flickered, the battery struggling. The place hated technology. He raised his flashlight. The beam showed a long hall carved from stone, walls etched with carvings of battles. Men in armor like the figures, stood tall in endless rows, each carving showing a war, a fire, a death. But their faces were scratched away, every single one. Elias stopped, his breath catching. Why would someone erase their own faces? The whispers grew louder. He tightened his grip on the rifle, but the sound wasn't outside, it was inside his helmet. No, inside his head. Words he couldn't understand, but they felt sharp, like knives sliding across his mind. "Keep walking," he whispered to himself. "Don't think, just walk." The hall ended in a chamber. In the center stood a machine, tall as 3 men, shaped like a throne but made of wires, steel, and glowing cores. And in the throne sat a figure. At first Elias thought it was another statue, but its head turned, slow and creaking, and red eyes lit up in the dark. The armor it wore was broken, pieces missing, cables spilling like veins. Unlike the glowing figure outside, this one looked like it had been rotting here for centuries, waiting for someone to arrive. The voice that came from it was not calm. It was jagged, broken, filled with hate. Human, it rasped. Another one. Always another. On. Elias raised his rifle, heart hammering. "Stay back." The figure laughed, a hollow metallic laugh that made the walls tremble. "You think you can end me with a weapon? Fool. I was killing before your kind learned fire." The machine throne rose, cables tearing from the ground, sparks flying. The figure stood, taller than Elias had expected, its armor glowing faintly, red where it had cracked. It stepped forward, slow, unstoppable. Elias fired. Blue bolts slammed into its chest, leaving burns but not slowing it. It raised one broken hand, and with a wave the rifle flew from Elias's grip, torn away by invisible force. Elias gasped, backing up. "Your test is not to fight me," the figure said. "Your test is to face me." The chamber shook. The walls rippled like water, the carvings of warriors coming alive, their faceless heads turning to watch him. The whispers became screams. Elias fell to his knees, clutching his head. He saw visions flashing before his eyes, cities burning, skies torn apart, beings in armor tearing through worlds like storms. He saw the figure outside, younger, brighter, leading armies. He saw betrayal, fire, endless war. And finally, he saw what was beneath the armor. Not flesh, not bone. Something alive, something endless, something hungry. Elias screamed, slamming his fists into the stone floor. "Stop it!" The visions ended. The red figure stood over him, silent. Then it spoke. "You are weak, but you did not break." The chamber's light dimmed. The throne collapsed back into itself, dragging the figure with it. Its last words echoed in Elias's mind. "The truth waits. But can you carry it, human? Or will it carry you?" The darkness vanished. Elias stumbled forward, falling through the gate back into the courtyard. The armored figure was waiting. "You lived," it said. Elias gasped, pulling off his helmet to suck in the sharp air. His skin was pale, his eyes wide, his hands trembling. "What the hell was that? What did you make me see?" The figure leaned close, its glowing eyes burning into him. "The first test," it said. "Now you know a piece of what we were, and you know why you should fear what I am beneath this armor." Elias wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers, but his body shook too much. The truth was simple. He had survived. Barely. And part of him already feared what the second test might be. The memory. Echo Elias could still feel the echo of screams inside his head long after he left the gate. The ruins around him were silent, but silence did not bring peace. His hands shook when he touched his rifle. His breathing was uneven. He kept replaying the visions in his mind. Armored giants, burning skies, worlds collapsing. But one image haunted him most. A glimpse of what hid beneath the armor. Something shifting, glowing. Alive but not flesh. Something that should not exist. The armored figure walked ahead without looking back. Its white lights pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and cold. Elias wanted to scream at it, demand answers, but the words stuck in his throat. Every time he looked at the being, he remembered the red figure in the throne laughing, saying, "Your test is to face me." He had faced it. He had survived. But had he won? They reached a tower half buried in the dust. The top was shattered, but inside the walls were still strong. covered in the same strange carvings. The armored figure stopped at the entrance. "This place will show you more." Elias frowned. "More what?" "More nightmares." "Memory," the being said. "Not yours, ours." Before Elias could argue, the figure raised a hand. The carvings on the wall glowed, lines of light crawling across stone like veins. The floor vibrated. Elias stumbled, grabbing the wall. Suddenly, the world broke. The courtyard, the ruins, the dust, they vanished. Elias was no longer in the tower. He was standing on a battlefield. The sky burned orange with fire. Ships rained from above like falling stars, explosions ripping holes in the ground. Armored warriors, hundreds, thousands of them, marched across the plains. Their armor glowed, with the same light as the figure who had led him here. Their weapons burned brighter than suns. Elias spun around, terrified. None of them noticed him. He was a ghost inside their memory. At the front of the army stood the figure, younger, brighter. Its armor was whole, glowing with power. Its voice carried across the battlefield. "Today we end them. Today we prove that we are more than flesh. Today we are eternal." The warriors roared, the sound shaking the ground. They charged forward, colliding with an enemy Elias couldn't fully see. Shadows, giant shapes, twisted, clawed, monstrous. They moved like smoke but struck like steel. The battle was chaos. Energy blasts ripped holes in the earth. The armored warriors fought with precision, never hesitating, never showing fear. They were too strong, too fast, too perfect. Elias realized then what the figure had meant when it said they gave up flesh. No human could move like this. No human could fight like this. But even they could bleed. Elias saw warriors fall, their armor cracking, their bodies inside glowing with strange light instead of blood. They screamed, and when they fell, the shadows consumed them. Elias backed away, clutching his head. "Stop this," he whispered. "I don't want to see this." The vision ignored him. The battle raged for what felt like hours. The warriors pushed forward, breaking the shadow army. Victory was near. But then Elias saw it, an even larger shadow, taller than towers, with eyes like burning suns. It stepped onto the battlefield, and everything changed. The warriors screamed, their voices breaking for the first time. The ground split open beneath its steps. Ships fell from the sky like paper burned by fire. The giant shadow raised its hand, and hundreds of warriors turned to ash in an instant. Elias gasped. He had never seen power like this, not even in stories, of Earth's wars. The younger version of the armored figure stood tall before the giant. Its voice thundered, "You cannot kill what is eternal." Then it tore off its own helmet. Elias's heart stopped. Beneath the armor was no face, no flesh, no eyes, only light, pure and wild, swirling like a storm trapped in a human shape. It was terrible and beautiful at once. The giant shadow hesitated, as if even it feared what it saw. The glowing figure leapt forward, colliding with the shadow. The sky split open in white fire. The vision shattered. Elias fell to his knees, gasping for air. He was back in the tower. The armored figure stood over him, silent, watching. What was that?" Elias whispered. "Memory," the figure said. "The echo of who we were." Elias shook his head, his eyes wide with terror. "You were soldiers, monsters, you destroyed everything." The figure tilted its head. "We were survivors. We gave up flesh to fight what flesh could not. We became something else. But every gift has a cost." Elias felt his chest tighten. He remembered the laughter of the broken red figure in the throne. And what was the cost? The figure stepped closer, its glowing eyes inches from his. "The cost was what you fear most. Humanity." Elias froze. "You call me beautiful, human," the figure whispered, the same words it had spoken before. "But beauty was the mask we wore. Beneath the armor is not something your kind can love. Beneath the armor is the truth, and the truth will burn you." The tower walls dimmed, the carvings fading back into silence. Elias stood shaking, trying to steady his breath. He realized now that every step he took on this planet was dragging him deeper into a story that had begun long before his kind learned to walk. And he wasn't sure if he wanted to know the ending. The betrayal of Flesh Elias didn't sleep that night. He sat against the cold wall of the ruined tower, his rifle across his knees, staring at the armored figure who stood like a statue near the entrance. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. The glow of its armor pulsed faintly, slow, like the rhythm of a heartbeat. But it wasn't a heartbeat. Elias knew that now. Whatever was inside that shell, it was not alive in the way he understood. He shut his eyes, but sleep only dragged him back into visions. He saw glowing warriors tearing their own flesh away, replacing it with steel. He heard screams, half human, half something else, as men and women gave up blood for light. He saw faces burning out of existence, replaced by white energy bound, in armor. When morning came, if this planet even had mornings, the armored figure finally spoke. "You wonder what we are." Elias didn't answer at first. His throat was too dry, but then he forced himself to say, "Not what. Who? Who are you?" The figure tilted its head. "Once, I was a soldier, like the ones you saw in the echoes. But long ago I ceased to be. Flesh. I am not who. I am what." The words sank into Elias like knives. He stood, gripping his rifle tighter. "You're saying you're not alive?" The figure's voice dropped lower. "Alive. Dead. These words are for your kind. We traded them for something else, for power, for survival." Elias shook his head. "That's not survival, that's betrayal. You betrayed what you were." The figure stepped closer, and the air around it grew colder. Elias felt his skin crawl beneath his suit. "Flesh is weakness," the figure said. "Flesh dies, flesh breaks, flesh rots. When the shadows came, flesh fell in rivers of blood. We chose something greater. We became eternal." Elias's voice cracked, a mix of fear and anger. "You became monsters." For the first time, the armored figure leaned close, so close that Elias could see his own reflection in the glowing surface of its mask. "Monsters are only what the weak call the strong." Elias backed away, his heart pounding. But then the figure did something it hadn't done before. It raised its hand and touched the side of its helmet. The armor hissed, unlocking. "No," Elias whispered. "Don't." With a slow, deliberate motion, the figure removed its helmet. Elias froze. His stomach twisted. His breath caught in his chest. There was no face, no skin, no eyes. Inside, the armor was a storm of white light, swirling and shifting, barely contained by the metal shell. Shapes flickered within it. Hands, mouths, faces, flickers of what might once have been human, but had been erased, replaced by raw energy. It was both beautiful and horrifying. Elias stumbled back. What are you?" The voice came not from a mouth but from everywhere at once, louder, stronger. "We are what remains when humanity tears itself free from flesh. We are the echo of will without weakness. We are what you fear most, because we were once you." Elias's rifle trembled in his hands. He wanted to fire, to end this nightmare, but his finger refused to pull the trigger, because beneath the horror, he saw something else. The light flickered, unstable, as if it was fighting to hold its shape. And inside that storm of energy, he saw pain. The figure locked the helmet back in place with a hiss. The glow dimmed, controlled again. Its voice returned to the calm tone Elias hated. "Do you understand now?" Elias's voice was a whisper. "You gave up everything. Your bodies, your lives, your humanity." The figure turned, stepping toward the broken window of the tower. Outside, the ruins stretched for miles, endless graves of a dead empire. "We gave up weakness," it said. "But in doing so, we lost more than we knew. You call it betrayal. Perhaps it was, but it was the only way to stand against the shadows." Elias's mind burned with questions. The shadows. What were they? What were you fighting? The figure didn't answer. Instead, it lifted a hand pointing to the horizon. Elias followed the gesture. His blood turned cold. Out there, beyond the ruins, something moved. Tall shapes, black against the red haze, shifting slowly across the land. At first he thought they were towers. Then they moved again, twisting, bending, growing. Their forms were wrong, like smoke shaped into claws and faces, bodies too large to belong to anything natural. The shadows, Elias whispered. They're still here? The figure's voice was calm. They never left. They wait. They always wait. Elias felt his chest tighten. His ship was destroyed. His comms were dead. He was trapped on a world where monsters fought monsters, and he was the only thing left with flesh. The figure turned back to him, its glowing eyes burning brighter. You see now why we chose to shed the flesh. The shadows do not fear men. They do not fear blood. But they feared us when we became what lies beneath the armor. Elias shook his head. His voice broke. But if you gave up humanity to fight them, who's left to win? You didn't survive. You killed yourselves. The figure stepped closer, towering over him. For the first time, its voice trembled, not with fear, but with something Elias couldn't name. Perhaps, it said softly, that is why you are here. Elias's heart skipped. He understood then. He was not just a lost explorer. He was being measured, weighed, judged. The shadows outside shifted again, closer now, their forms crawling against the sky. Elias gripped his rifle tighter, sweat sliding down his face. The figure whispered the words once more, colder this time. You call me beautiful, human, but beauty is only the shell. Beneath the armor is truth, and truth is a weapon. Elias knew the second test was about to begin. The trap. The shadows did not move closer, not yet. They lingered on the horizon, their twisted forms swaying like towers made of smoke. Watching, waiting. Elias wanted to believe they were nothing more than illusions, tricks of a broken sky. But his gut told him otherwise. They were real, and they were patient. The armored figure had said nothing more. It only turned and began walking again, leading Elias deeper into the ruins. Elias followed, though every step felt heavier. His rifle was warm in his hands, but he knew, bullets, plasma, none of it would matter if those things came for him. They entered a wide plaza surrounded by towering arches. The air inside was colder, the silence deeper. Elias felt his skin prickle. Something about the place was wrong. He glanced up and froze. The arches were not only stone, they were machines. Hidden panels, gears, weapons long asleep. And now, they were waking. A low hum filled the plaza. Lights flickered in the walls, crawling across stone like veins of fire. Dust shook off the ground as the machines began to breathe again after centuries. Elias spun, raising his rifle. What is this? The armored figure stopped in the center of the plaza. Its glowing eyes burned brighter. The heart of the city. Its guardians. Elias's chest tightened. Guardians? They're not going to... The ground split. From the cracks rose machines, taller than men, their bodies twisted like metal, beasts. Some had arms that ended in blades. Others had faces with too many eyes glowing red. Their voices were static screams, the language of old war. Elias backed up. No, 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 not again. The figure's voice was calm, too calm. This is the trap. The city remembers intruders, it remembers war, and it has decided to test you again. The machines moved. The first lunged at Elias. He fired, the blue plasma blast burning through its chest. The thing screeched, collapsing, but two more rose from behind it. One leapt from the wall, slamming him to the ground. Elias rolled, barely, escaping its claws, and fired into its head. Sparks exploded, but there were too many, too fast. He shouted, "Do something! You can stop them!" Like before. The armored figure didn't move. It only watched, silent. its glowing lines pulsing like a heartbeat. "Why aren't you helping me?" Elias screamed, blasting another machine apart. Sweat dripped into his eyes, his arms shaking. "You'll let me die," the voice finally answered, slow, heavy. "This is not my trial, human. It is yours." Another machine charged. Elias dodged, but its blade cut across his shoulder, slicing his suit. Pain burned through him. He fell to one knee, vision blurring. The machines closed in. Then something changed. The armored figure raised its hand. For the first time, Elias saw it unleash. White light exploded from its palm, brighter than any sun. The machines froze mid-strike, their bodies trembling. The air shook as invisible pressure crushed them, folding steel like paper. Sparks and screams filled the plaza. The machines fell one by one, shattered into dust. Elias shielded his eyes, his ears ringing. When the light faded, silence returned. The plaza was filled with wreckage. The armored figure lowered its hand. Its voice was softer now. "You survived longer than most. That is good." Elias staggered to his feet, chest heaving. You could have ended it sooner." "Yes." "Then why didn't you?" The figure stepped closer. "Because strength is only proven in the fire. Flesh must suffer to understand its limits." Elias shook his head, rage rising in his chest. "You don't understand. I'm not like you. I don't have your armor, your power. I bleed, I break, I die." The figure tilted its head. "Yes. That is why you are here. That is why the city still allows you to breathe." Elias frowned, confused. "What are you talking about?" The ground beneath them pulsed with light, lines crawling through. The plaza gathering at its center. A hidden mechanism unlocked and a platform rose slowly from the earth. On the platform was a sphere, black metal, covered in glowing symbols. It pulsed like a living heart. The figure turned toward it. This is the core of the city, its voice, its will. It was built to answer only to flesh. Elias froze. "Flesh? You mean me?" The armored figure's voice grew cold. "Yes. We shed our flesh long ago. The core does not recognize us anymore, but it still recognizes you. That is why you survived the trial. The city chose you." Elias felt his stomach drop. His hands trembled. "Chose me for what?" The figure's glowing eyes burned into him, to decide if this world lives again or dies forever. Before Elias could respond, the machines stirred again. Broken pieces began crawling back together, rebuilding themselves with screeches of metal. The city was not done. The armored figure stepped back, its voice echoing with power. "This is the final part of the trap. The city will fight you until you choose. Touch the core and it will obey you. Refuse, and it will consume you." The machines rose higher, taller, more twisted than before. Their eyes glowed red, their claws dripping sparks. Elias's heart thundered. He could feel sweat dripping. Down his neck, the taste of metal in his mouth. His mind screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere left to run. The city had caged him. The city wanted an answer. And behind him, the armored figure whispered like a shadow, "Choose, human. Choose before the city swallows you whole. The choice." The machines screamed as they rebuilt themselves, steel grinding against steel, red light flooding their broken eyes. They rose taller, sharper, more twisted with every second. Elias backed toward the glowing sphere on the platform, his rifle trembling in his grip. His lungs burned. His shoulder still ached from the cut. His thoughts spun like broken glass. The armored figure stood a few steps away, calm as always, its glowing lines pulsing like a steady drum. Watching. Waiting. "Touch it," the figure said. "Touch the core, only then will the city listen." Elias shook his head, sweat dripping down his face. "And if I do? What happens to me?" The figure tilted its head. "That is the choice. Salvation or destruction." The machines moved closer, claws scraping the stone. The sound was like knives against bone. Elias raised his rifle and fired. blue plasma blasts tearing holes in metal bodies. 2 machines fell, but 5 more climbed from the cracks. They didn't stop. They would never stop. Elias cursed under his breath, firing again, his arms shaking. You said this is my test. You said this city chose me, but why? I'm not one of you. I'm not some soldier or whatever you are. The figure's voice echoed, cold but heavy with something Elias couldn't name. You are flesh. You are what we lost. The core requires a living soul, not light, not armor. That is why you are here. Elias's heart hammered in his chest. He stared at the sphere. It pulsed slow and alive, like it was breathing. Its glow seemed to call to him. He felt it in his bones, a voice without words whispering in his blood. Come closer. Touch me. Decide. Another machine lunged. Elias spun and blasted it apart, sparks raining around him. But more kept coming. Their shadows stretched across the plaza like crawling hands. He shouted at the armored figure. And if I touch it, what then? What will it do to me? The figure stepped closer, its glowing eyes burning into him. It will bind you, it will mark you. You will become the voice of the city. Elias froze, his stomach twisting. You mean, it'll change me? Yes. And if I refuse? The machines screamed again, their claws tearing into stone. The plaza shook as their bodies swarmed like a tide. The figure's voice dropped to a whisper. Then you die. Slowly. Elias's mind raced. He looked at the machines. He looked at the core. He looked at the figure standing there with its calm, glowing eyes. He wanted to scream. He wanted to run. But there was no running left. The machines rushed forward. Elias turned and sprinted to the platform. He stumbled, climbed, and reached the sphere. The glow pulsed stronger now, beating against his skin, pulling him closer. He raised his hand. His fingertips brushed the surface. It was cold, too cold, like touching ice and fire at the same time. The machines shrieked. The sphere flared with light. Elias screamed. Visions slammed into his mind. Cities, rising from dust. Warriors in glowing armor kneeling before the same sphere. Voices chanting in languages older than stars. And then pain, searing pain, like his skin was being peeled away. His blood turned to fire. He fell to his knees, clutching the sphere, but he couldn't let go. The core pulled him tighter, binding him. The armored figure stepped closer, watching. For the first time, its voice trembled. Do not fight it. Let it in. Only then will you survive. Elias gasped, choking. His vision blurred. His mind was drowning in light. He saw faces, human faces, burning, screaming, vanishing. He saw their flesh dissolve into light, trapped forever in armor. No, Elias shouted, his voice breaking. I'm not like you. I won't become you. The light inside the sphere fought back, angry, alive. It tried to consume him. His heart felt like it was tearing apart. But Elias clung to one thought, one truth. I am human. The machines lunged for the platform, claws raised. The sphere exploded with white fire. A shockwave ripped across the plaza, tearing machines apart, blasting them into dust. The ground cracked, the arches shattered. The ruins shook like they were alive and screaming. When the light faded, Elias was still kneeling by the core. His hands burned, but he was alive. He pulled himself up, his breath ragged. The sphere was dark now, silent, as if it had given its power away. The armored figure stepped forward, its glowing eyes locked on him. You touched the core. You chose. Elias staggered back, shaking his head. I didn't choose anything. I just wanted to live. The figure's voice grew deeper. Survival is a choice. And now, the city listens to you. Elias turned. The machines were gone. The arches were broken. The plaza was silent again, but the silence felt different. Heavy. Watching. He realized the truth. The city had not died. The city was awake now. And it was awake because of him. His stomach twisted. He whispered almost to himself. What have I done? The armored figure leaned closer. You opened the path. The city has a master again. But remember this, human. Power does not come without cost, and the cost will come for you. Elias stared at the dark sphere, his hands still trembling. He didn't want to admit it, but deep inside he already felt it, the change. A whisper at the edge of his thoughts. A voice not his own, quiet, but waiting. The city had marked him, and there was no turning back. The truth beneath the armor. The plaza was silent, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of something holding its breath. The machines were gone, the arches shattered, the core dark. But Elias could feel it. The city wasn't dead. It was awake, and it was inside him. His hands still tingled from the touch of the sphere. His skin looked the same, but underneath, he felt different. Like something was moving just beneath his veins, whispering, waiting. The armored figure stepped closer, its glowing eyes burning like small suns. You carry it now, the figure said. The will of the city, the bond. Elias shook his head. No, I didn't ask for this, I didn't want this. The figure tilted its head. Want is nothing. Choice is everything. And you chose to survive. Elias turned toward the horizon. The shadows were closer now. Their shapes loomed over the ruins, taller, darker, bending in ways that defied nature. Their red eyes burned like holes in the world. They're coming, Elias whispered. Yes, the figure said. They always come. That is why we shed flesh. That is why we became armor. To fight them. Elias's voice broke. And what did it cost you? The figure was silent for a moment, then slowly it raised its hand to its helmet. With a hiss, the locks released. The metal shell lifted, and for the second time, Elias saw it. Saw what lived beneath. The storm of white light. Shapes flickering like broken memories, faces screaming and vanishing, not a person, not a soldier. Something caught between life and death, bound forever inside the shell. This is what we became, the voice thundered, now louder, deeper, filled with echo. We gave up flesh, we gave up humanity, we won battles, we crushed the shadows, but when the war ended, there was nothing left of us. Only this. Elias staggered back. His stomach twisted, his mind screamed to run, but he couldn't look away. The light inside the figure swirled, unstable, as if the being itself was struggling to stay whole. You call me beautiful, human, but beauty was the mask. Beneath the armor there is only truth, and truth is agony. The sky shook, the shadows roared. Their voices were not sound but thunder in the bones, vibrations in the air. They moved toward the city, dozens, hundreds of them, a tide of living darkness. Elias gripped his rifle, but he knew it was useless. He felt the whispers inside him grow louder, the voice of the city calling. He realized then what the core had given him. The city was not only awake, it was his to command. He whispered, No. No, I can't. I'm not like you. The armored figure's glowing eyes burned hotter. You must. The city will not obey me. It obeys flesh. It obeys you. If you do not stand, the shadows will consume us both. Elias shook his head, tears in his eyes. If I use it, if I let it in, I'll become like you. I'll lose myself. The figure stepped closer, towering over him. For the first time, its voice trembled, not with anger, not with pride, but with something almost human. Perhaps, or perhaps you will be stronger than we ever were, flesh and fire together. The shadows crashed into the ruins. The ground split, towers crumbled, the air filled with their screams. Elias fell to his knees, clutching his head. The voice of the city thundered inside him. Rise, fight, command us, command me. He looked at the figure, light bleeding from its armor. If I do this, and I'll never be me again. The figure leaned close, the storm inside it flickering. Then be more than you. Be what we could not. Be human. And eternal. The shadows surged into the plaza, claws of black smoke stretched toward them. Elias placed his hand on the ground. The ruins lit up. White fire burst from the cracks, racing across the plaza, climbing the broken arches, spreading into the towers. The machines rose again, not red, not twisted, but glowing with the same light Elias felt burning in his chest. Thousands of them. The shadows roared. The machines roared back. Elias stood, light burning in his eyes, his voice not just his own, but joined with the city. Not today. The machines charged, colliding with the shadows. The ruins became a battlefield once more, but this time the city fought with Elias at its heart. He raised his hand, and the machines obeyed, blasting the shadows with beams of light. The air shook with explosions. The sky cracked with fire. The armored figure stood beside him, its storm of light spilling from cracks in its armor. For the first time it bowed its head. "You lead them now," it said. "Perhaps you will save what we could not." Elias screamed as he unleashed another wave of power, the city roaring with him. The shadows faltered, pushed back, their monstrous forms dissolving under the fire. The battle lasted hours, or seconds. Time dissolved in the storm. When it was over, the plaza was broken, the sky torn, the shadows gone. Silence returned, heavy and endless. Elias collapsed to his knees. His body trembled. His skin burned, his mind felt fractured. He didn't know if he was still himself. The armored figure stood beside him, its helmet off, its storm of light flickering weakly. "You see now, power is a burden, but you carried it." Elias raised his head, his voice hoarse. "At what cost?" The figure knelt, close enough that Elias could feel the cold of its storm. "The cost is always the same, humanity, but perhaps you will prove us wrong." For the first time, Elias looked at the figure and didn't see a monster. He saw pain. He saw loneliness. He saw a being who had given up everything to fight. And in its storm of light, he saw a reflection of himself. The figure whispered almost gently, "Maybe you were right. Maybe we are beautiful, after all." Its storm flickered, then faded. The armor collapsed into dust. Elias was alone. Alone in the ruins. Alone with the city's voice inside him. He stood, his eyes glowing faintly in the red haze, his hands still trembling. He looked at the horizon, where the last shadows slipped away. He whispered, "I am human. I will stay human." But deep inside, he knew the truth. He was something else now. The city was his. The war was not over, and the universe had just gained a new weapon.